What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Miller, and this is IGN's Mr. Fantastic Chuck Osborne.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Chuck.
Yes.
We have a very defined role on IGN. You and I are the DC Comics super fans.
Yeah.
You
can probably tell.
There you go.
I'm a Batman guy.
I'm a Superman guy. Superboy, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah. Here's something I don't talk all that much about, except for when I review the games and talk about them all the time. I love Spider-Man video games, and I just got to go play The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the video game.
How was it?
It was more of The Amazing Spider-Man, the game 1, which, depending on how you felt about that, is either a good thing or a bad thing. I went back and watched the review before I did this one, right? I gave it a 7.0 back then. A good, flatline good. It didn't look that great. It was repetitive, but you're swinging around being Spider-Man and collecting comic books. That literally can be applied to this one so far, except that, and maybe it's because, I got the blinders of the current gen on me, Chuck. But I've been playing that infamous Second Son. Whoo, dog, is The Amazing Spider-Man 2 not look like a great game? It's textures are flat. The world, there's not, you're swinging around Manhattan, there's like, the wall of fog. But the weird thing was I was playing it on a 360 build when it's coming to Xbox One and PS4, but they said this is the version they've been focusing on. So again, I was like, that's not what I want to hear.
I guess because that's the established platform right now.
Right, so you have an engine that's already up and running, but you think you'd bring the pretty version to show off to the press and GDC.
So did you see any villains?
No, I mean, Harry Osborn was walking around. And see, this is what I want to, before we switch gears completely. The game, like I said, not pretty, seems repetitive again. I'm still excited to play this. I still want to swing around and do all these things.
That's my favorite part of Spider-Man games, is just swinging around the city.
What if I told you they've redone the web slinging in this one to make it, they're always trying to get back to that sweet spot of how good it should be, right?
Right.
This time they've gone down and they've done the whole thing. They've done away with, you being able to web the sky. You can't do that. You have to have buildings you're attaching your webs to.
Right.
And you have to alternate triggers.
Okay.
So you want to throw right, you want to throw left, you got to hit those things. You have to actually get in a rhythm when you're playing of hitting R2, L2, R2.
How did that feel to you?
I liked it. I mean, it immediately, is a different way of web slinging, so I flew, slammed into the wall, and I looked like drunk. But once I got into a rhythm of it, and then you can hold them, you slingshot yourself back, get some air, get going. That was all fun, and that felt good. And that was immediately when I got back in that thing of the swing of it, if you will, of like, yep, I will do this and collect all 700 comic book pages again, or go through and, there's random crimes again, and all these things are popping up that you get to go do. One of the things about those random crimes now is that there's this new hero versus menace system. Now,
really?
We're used to these morality things, right?
Right.
Spider-Man, Web of Shadows, of course, you could be good Spider-Man, bad Spider-Man, the story's got crazy. This is not that. This is, if you go out on these missions, like you go out to like fires, right? And you have to use your spider sense to find people in the building. If you get everyone out, you get the hero points. You get every one of these side missions now ends with a little news VO from this reporter who was in the first game, which is a nice sense of continuity.
Right.
But she's talking about how you're doing really good. If you miss somebody and they die in the fire, or nobody dies. If you miss somebody and the firemen get them out instead of you, you get one from J. Jonah Jameson saying, "Oh man, Spider-Man's a menace." Does this sound cool to you?
That sounds sort of cool. I mean, it's like Spider-Man's just being taken down a peg because he wasn't a completionist. He wasn't able to get all the people out, but his heart was still in the right place. He was still trying.
It
wasn't like he went evil.
I know, I agree 100% with that. Here's the interesting twist on it, is that first of all, the side missions shouldn't be that tough. I mean, there's meters counting down. I imagine you're going to be able to get these guys pretty simple. If you build up the hero meter, you start leveling up, and then you get damage amplifiers on your costume or whatever you're doing, so you get more. If you go the opposite way, the menace, you start getting negatives, drawbacks. You're doing less damage. And
now that's cool.
I asked him, so what's the benefit of going to be a menace? Like, oh no, there's no benefit to it. I mean, you get to hear J. Jonah. I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. I feel like to commit your time to. But cool. The other thing I saw is you get to go out and get new suits, obviously. There's been so many Spider-Man suits. The first one they showed was the Miles Morales one that's happening right now in the Ultimate Universe. It looked great in motion, having it on, having that. But each suit comes and it has its own pluses and minuses, pros and cons of what it's doing. So again, then you're leveling up each one of these suits individually to make them better and better. So it's almost like one of those things like you'll make one suit perfect and you want to go get the next suit and make it out a little bit more. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
And then the other cool thing they put in that I think it's a cool thing. I always like that, I think superheroes are complicated, right? And I like the idea of having secret identity levels. You actually play as Peter this time around. You go into events, you're walking around, then you start talking to people. They showed Peter walking into a Wilson Fisk event. Kingpin is in this game.
Right.
Walking in there and talking to Harry Osborn, who was there, and dialogue choices pop up. And at any point, you can skip them all. They're like, we know some people don't care about storyline. You can skip them no matter what. But then you get to ask questions and talk to Harry and do all this weird thing. I thought that's a neat little twist.
So how does that add to the game?
It gives you a little bit of exposition, right? As far as like why Harry's here, why he's working with Fisk. These are the questions, right? Like Wilson is still the Kingpin. I don't know if everybody knows that, but they know that he's like a shady dude. Why would you want to work with him? You
right,
ask those questions.
You're not earning points though by going around talking to people.
No, it's totally something they were talking a lot about fan service, right? That like they feel like they've improved New York. They've made combat a bit tighter. They've added dodge rolls. They've added multiple enemy takedowns. They expanded on the stealth system a lot of us liked in the last one, and this is also part of that. Just like if you guys want to hear more about what's happening in Spider-Man's world, here you go.
Right. Well, that's cool. I love that stuff myself.
Me too. Yeah, I hope it's well done. That's the big question about it. A lot of these things sound cool, but then it's just like, how much it's one of these Activision licensed games, which can be great or they can be not so great, and we're right in that middle. And from what I'm seeing, it looks a lot like the last Spider-Man game that already came out, but that was a few years ago. So I'm excited to be Spider-Man again, but I don't know if I'm excited to be Spider-Man again in the same world of like, oh man, this car's getting stolen again.
There's only so many times that you can just swing around New York City, but it still never seems to get old for me.
Yeah, no, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
Still going to jump in there. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Are you going to play The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Let us know in the comments, then make sure you keep coming back to IGN for all the coverage of this game, which, by the way, Chuck, is a sequel to their first game, which tied into the movie universe but didn't follow the events of the movie. So this one is a sequel to that game running parallel to the events of the movie, occasionally crossing over but then breaking back away. So that won't be complicated at all.